Hi, I'm John, and we have another great study. Lesson number 8 in the Gospel of John Community Bible Study. And John chapter 3, verses 16 to 21 have to do with a topic that not everybody's comfortable talking about. In fact, many people are not, because God sent His Son into the world to save the world, but not to condemn the world. And there's this talk about condemnation and rejection and what God is doing. And so it gets a little complicated and uncomfortable, because we don't like to judge and we don't like to be judged, and we're not sure where we are on this, perhaps. And so that raises some questions. There were some great discussions, I understand, in each of the four groups, great conversations. And so it's really good to be thinking about all of these things that we're reading and observing and coming to some of our own conclusions. So congratulations for doing the hard work and for sticking with it. And if you weren't able to be a part of the study, it's worth it always to do the observation, work through the questions, and be learning to draw some of your own conclusions, and then listening to others to see what they can add. And so don't forget to read the commentary at the end of the lesson. But so remember, we're in the context of Jesus having a conversation with Nicodemus. And Nicodemus is a teacher of the law, and none of us are teachers of the law like Nicodemus, Jewish religious leaders that just really have a strong formation in the laws of Moses and the words of the prophets and the wisdom literature. And we are not as aware that Nicodemus had already a great expectation of life and death, and the concept of a final judgment and a just God who would bring righteous judgment, correct judgment, and separate the bad, condemn the bad, and save the good. And so here Jesus is bringing to light a concept, and John, the author of the gospel, is bringing to light a concept that he's just going to keep coming back to in different ways all through the gospel. Now, Jesus has just told Nicodemus from our study a week ago, study number 7, he was talking about you have to be born again. And Nicodemus said, how do you do that? We can be born again from your mother? Obviously not. So I don't know what you're talking about. And Jesus says, no, because there's like these spiritual truths and there are these physical, material realities, and you're struggling just to understand this world, and how can I try to explain these spiritual realities? But he says, let me go one more. Nicodemus, you have an understanding of the day of judgment and who will be saved and who will be condemned. Those who have kept the law, saved. Those who are enemies of those who have kept the law, enemies of your people, they will be condemned. And God will come and He will judge your enemies, and He will hopefully judge all of my enemies. And so that was a common way of thinking, and that's still a common way that many people think today. If there is a God, then He sees me, He knows I'm obviously one of the good guys. And so particularly the religious leaders are thinking that, and Jesus is turning that around, and John is showing how Jesus turned that around. And he said, God sent His Son into the world not to condemn the world. Do you think God is coming to bring judgment and justice? And so you're seeing all the bad things, and you can't wait for God to get here and destroy the unjust people, the bad people. And he says, God sent His Son not to bring judgment, but to bring salvation. And everyone who believes in Him can share in that salvation, in that life. It's the same message that John said in chapter 1. The light came into the world, and to everyone who believed, He gave the right, the power to be a son of God, to be part of the family. And so He did not come to condemn the world, but so that the world through Him could be saved. So there's a clear emphasis on salvation, the merciful, loving act of God. And if you think, well, this is a new God, because the Old Testament God was full of anger and wrath. Well, that was a portrayal, but it's not the whole story. Quickly, you could go back to the story of Jonah and remember that Jonah felt that God was sending him to speak to the people of Nineveh, which was the capital of Assyria, which were horrible, feared, barbaric to them, enemies, very far from God. And Jonah said, look, I'd rather throw myself into the sea than go tell those people. I want God to judge them with righteous anger. And That would be the only thing, though, that they are fit for. But God had other plans, and eventually Jonah gets to Syria, and he says, look, this is what I believe God wanted me to tell you. And the people listen, and they respond, and they repent, and we're clearly amazed to see that some of the worst enemies of Israel in all of the Old Testament history, God speaks to them with mercy and compassion and offers the same salvation that he's offering to us. So that's what Jesus is telling Nicodemus. It's not what you think it is, Nicodemus. I'm not here to bring judgment. I'm not here to criticize and point out the flaws. I'm here to show people the path to life. And that's why John said at the beginning, the light came into the world, into the darkness. But the world didn't recognize him. Excuse me. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. And so that's how the chapter concludes. Jesus says, look, I've come from above, basically, and the message that comes from God is truth. Not only light and life, but it's also truth. And whoever believes it has life, has access to the life. This is for everyone who believes. But it ends, whoever rejects the Son does not have life, but he remains under the, what does the text in English say? He remains under the wrath of God. And so that's a concept from the Old Testament, and it's a concept that's carried through into the New Testament, that God cannot look at the people who continually walk in darkness and reject the life and the light of his Son. And so John started the gospel saying that. He came to his own people. And so Jesus is telling Nicodemus, you know what? Jesus, I have come, and I've come to offer life, and it's available to you. But you and your colleagues, if you reject me, then you're walking in the same darkness as all those people that you are hoping that God will condemn with his judgment because they're your enemies. You're no different from them, Nicodemus. The question for you and I today is the same as it was for Nicodemus. How is your heart in relationship to God? And let God worry about all the rest of the people. God in his mercy comes to bring light and life and love, and he's inviting you into that path. And so will you follow him? May God bless you.